Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey guys, it's Debbie Potts for a new episode of The Whole Athlete, focusing how you can improve your performance and longevity by training the whole you with what I call the holistic method. So if you've been following me, when we started back in 2012, I was fit, fast, and strong. And that was the top of my career as a triathlete, marathoner, cyclist. And I was just, how old was I? 41 years old, and downhill spiral since then. And my focus today in 2020 and my personal story, Life is Not a Race, that I wrote, and the Holistic Method Manual, my purpose is to help you as an individual, athlete or not, to avoid going down this road that I've had happen to me internally in my body since 2013, about March 2013 to be exact. And you can read all about my personal story on Amazon. The Holistic Method was written a year later, where I have a chapter on each of the 8 elements of the Holistic Method that I created back in 2012. I think I started figuring this out, that we can't just exercise to be healthy. We can't just change what we're eating and exercise more to be healthy. We need to work on the 8 elements of the Holistic Method, and they're all just as important as the other, and one impacts the other. So if something's off, everything's off. And that's kind of what happened to me back in 2013, and it's embarrassing to say it's 2020, and I'm still struggling being able to run without fatigue over about 10 miles. And I found when I was cleaning out my entire house and my office and file folders over the holiday break, my certificates and races and medals, I went through all of that. And I raced a lot. I started doing Ironman in 2001. I started doing marathons in 1999 and Dan Skin triathlons back when, wow, I'm really dating myself, in 1995. I was 25 years old doing Dan Skin triathlons back in the day for fun, and realized, you know what, this is pretty fun. I like this, and I feel pretty strong, and I was good cyclist, and I could run, and just had to work on swimming. Well, I did many races, and what I found in my box of medals and certificates and race numbers, I didn't keep most of those, as I see some other friends keep all the race numbers. I threw out most of my medals that were not important to me, as like the half marathons and all the little races. I just kept my Ironmans and marathons, especially North Face 50K run in San Francisco I did many times, and Boston Marathon many times, and Ironman Hawaii, and every Ironman medal of course kept. But what I found was Boston Marathon, my finisher certificate, I actually used to be a strong, fast runner, and it seems like so long ago because I struggle now. But my best time in Boston was the 3:12 marathon. In Carlsbad, which is just last weekend as I record this episode, I did 1:33 half marathon, and New York Marathon I used to love doing as well. And Boston, the year after that, I did a 3:17. So I only say this, and I shared a lot of, where I was, top of the mountain in my race career, and then what happened the next year. I have not seen those numbers since. I barely can do speed work to get to that pace that I did endurance race at. I was effective at burning fat at high heart rates. I did metabolic efficiency testing starting back in 2005. I did the low carb, high fat way back then, before it was such a thing as it is now, finally more known. I did fasted workouts starting back in 2009. I did a USA Triathlon coaching certification, and Bob Seibelhorst spoke, and he spoke to me. I really understood what he was saying, and it was answering all these questions of my own curiosity I had since I started racing in 2001. And I wrote all this for some reason in my book, Life is Not a Race, I wrote my whole process and my mindset of where I went, dieting all the time growing up, and what happened when I was first training for Ironman back in 2001. I just thought, hey, you know what? I don't know why I'm eating a bagel and a banana and orange juice when I have all this fat to lose. And then I started learning about the zone diet, the 40-30-30, getting into that back then. But it was just as one day I shared in my book that I decided I'm going to teach spin class. And then I was going to meet people to ride bikes out in the country, out of Seattle and Enumclaw Fairgrounds. I remember I had to stop and have a nap. I tried doing a fasted workout without knowing what fasted workouts were back then. This is, reduced training for Seattle to Portland. So it was a 200-mile bike ride in one day. And I thought, I'm not going to eat anything. I have fat in my body. I'm just going to not eat and teach my body to use fat for fuel. Well, I didn't know what I know now. And there's a lot more to it. And I'm going to do a lot of research coming up, the enzymes and the cofactors and what's necessary to make that switch to become metabolically flexible, where we're primarily going out to the freezer to get that fat for fuel. We're not going to the refrigerator and getting that short, easy to grab carb storage. We're not, the other analogy I like is feeding the fire. We're not feeding the fire with kindling. We're feeding the fire with slow burning logs. And metabolic efficiency, ME, is really important, where you can burn fat at higher levels. And I shared on my Low Carb Athlete Facebook page some of the lab tests I did years ago on people. I did New Leaf metabolic testing cart for 10 years. And I so wish I was able to do the testing on people. The different brand, the company was bought by Lifetime Fitness, and now there's Parvo carts and another one, but they're $25,000 to buy. And I don't have that kind of money. So if someone wants to buy it and bring it to Seattle and get me a treadmill, I'll test people, where I train clients 2 days a week at CrossFit Amped, and just start doing that half the time, because it gives you so much information. And then if we can do the resting metabolic testing that they do in New Zealand, but some reason we can't get their testing cart here in the US, that Kirsty Woods, one of our listeners, and she was a guest on my podcast, talked about metabolic flexibility at resting levels, so they can test your ability to burn fat at rest. And so if you can find anywhere to get these tests done, it is worth the money, because you don't know if what you're doing is working, which goes for my other part-time job that I'm building up, my health coaching program, being the health detective and giving people the holistic method coaching program based on my nutritional therapy assessments, based on your genetic DNA fit reports that we can do. If you've done Viome, we'll look at that, and 5 to 6 functional lab tests that I will have clients do in my health coaching program, because we don't know if what we're doing is actually working. And why I became an FDN practitioner is because it's exactly what my mission is, and my purpose is to help you avoid going through what I did since 2013 by giving you the holistic method coaching program and implementing my nutritional therapy work in the functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner program, where we get 5 to 6 functional labs that we start with and give you metabolic chaos scorecard and look at your current lifestyle habits and history. And we create a 90-day protocol based on collecting all of this data. So really, it's an investigation into the health of what's going on inside of you. So I keep writing and sharing that you could be fit and healthy on the outside, but you may be a disaster on the inside, because all the oxidative stress that we put on our body with the exercise that's excessive, which if you do any endurance work, that's excessive. If you're working out more than 45 minutes a week, if you're doing more than 2 to 3 HIIT training workouts a week, that's way too much. If you're riding so much, if you're working out hard every day, you're not giving your body enough recovery and repair. All this is so important. So there's 5 functional labs I start with, and I always want to get people doing this one extra depending on their budget, because I charge for my coaching fee, and it's a separate fee to do the lab testing. So you get the lab kits shipped. I ship them to your house from the company, and then you pay them directly. So you just pay me for coaching and pay the lab fees to the company. And then we figure out what supplements and nutritional program you should be based on metabolic typing, based on our, one of the labs we do is the MRT food sensitivity lab. And then we'll be able to find out what foods you should avoid based on, are you able to balance your blood sugar and be fat adapted and all that. But before I go into a little bit more on metabolic flexibility, I want to talk about these 5 labs. So the stress hormone panels, I do the Dutch test or the BioHealth 205 test. So we're measuring your HPA axis function, any cortisol dysregulation, circadian rhythm, sex hormone imbalances. We also get numbers on your cortisol, DHA, estrogens, progesterone, testosterone, and your melatonin. So we get a snapshot of the overall vital reserve, and it gives us clues where we need to investigate a little bit deeper. For example, low melatonin is a sign of gut dysfunction. So the BioHealth test gives us a saliva that will test for vials that you do in a day, and then you ship them back. Or you can do the precision and analytical Dutch hormone test panel. So that Dutch stands for dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And so I just ordered the Dutch complete. So that's the Dutch adrenal test plus the Dutch hormone metabolites profile. And that includes all this information on your metabolites used, dopamine, norepinephrine, vitamins B12. It will tell us if we have deficient B12, B6, and what else? Glutathione deficiency. So it tells us a lot of information. And that's an easy one to do. I'm trying to do it this week, but women have to do it on days of their cycle 19, day 19 to day 21. And you have to start at nighttime and not have any liquids. So there's a whole thing. You have to really read these instructions to do it right so you don't mess up your lab test. And then the other test I wish everyone would do is the BioHealth Metabolic Assessment Profile. And this test is $155, and it's worth it because you can do it at home. It's a urine test, and it documents your gut, toxicity, liver issues, maldigestion, dysbiosis. It's assessing your oxidative stress, which is huge for athletes. I think a lot of us are damaging our mitochondria and we're speeding up our aging process, which, a side note, is what I'm doing a lot of research on. I'm sharing on my Low Carb Athlete Facebook page of these research articles because I'll be speaking on Jimmy Moore's Low Carb Keto Cruise, and then at KetoCon I am a speaker, and my topic's how to train the low carb athlete to improve performance and longevity. Well, I'm going to be sharing, of course, my Life is Not a Race story and the holistic method, how you can use those 8 elements of the holistic method to improve mitochondria function, because chronic stress impacts the whole you from the inside out. Chronic stress impacts your blood sugar, so you can have blood sugar dysregulation from chronic stress. But there's external obvious stressors, sometimes not so obvious, but there's hidden internal stressors that we don't know at all, that are going on at all inside of us unless we test with these functional lab tests. So this metabolic assessment profile, the BioHealth 101, is just a urine test you do at home. You ship it back to the lab, and then we get your results back pretty quickly. But to know if you are having liver detoxification issues is huge. To discover if you're having increased oxidative stress, another big one. If you have protein digestion problems, it's huge. I was elevated in all those 3 areas. So I am not telling you that we don't assess one lab result. We don't treat one lab. We look at all these labs together and correlate it with all your data that we collect from you. So it's really important not to go get a hormone test from a practitioner or your naturopath and then start taking hormones. We need to look at why. And you can't just figure out what your why is by doing 1 or 2 of these tests. So the other test we do is intestinal permeability test, so leaky gut. It assesses your mucosal barrier function, your nutrient assimilation. So even if you're eating a great healthy food, low carb diet, not having any inflammation, inflammatory foods as corn, peanuts, soy. You're avoiding the GMO foods. You're avoiding the canola oils and the refined sugars and gluten and grains. That's great. But what if you have leaky gut? And what if your gut wall lining is damaged? And so you're not able to get those nutrients to absorb into your body, into your gut wall lining. So the gut wall lining, we can find out through this test that's sugar molecules called lactulose and mannitol. You drink this mix and then we measure what comes out in your urine. So it's really fascinating to see how your gut health is. So it measures your villi integrity, your hyperpermeability, any signs of dysbiosis, and pathology. So a healthy mucosal barrier protects the very sensitive inside of your body from the toxic outside world. And the saying is, it's a secret why dogs can drink dirty water and don't get sick. So it just helps us as a health detective to collect more clues into your puzzle. And what we're doing, or I'm doing, is putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and you help me along the way, and we figure out a protocol for you to optimize your health and performance and longevity. So the other test is really essential to do too, because we just found this leaky gut test is also indication of dysbiosis. So we go back to that hormone test. We can tell if our hormones are out of whack, if that's related to gut function. We've got metabolic assessment tests to go, okay, liver congestion. All of these are connected, because if you have high food sensitivities, well, that's a test I haven't gotten to. If you have a lot of inflammation in your body, if you have different signs of liver congestion, there's also indication of high hormones that you're not able to detoxify. So your detox pathways, phase 1 and phase 2, I've talked about in the past, those are going to be impacted. If you're not able to break down your protein, you're not able to get your amino acids, and then we're not able to make the neurotransmitters, and all this stuff is just big domino effect. So your GI pathogen test is a really important one to get as well, but you don't want to just get that test, because even if you treat a dysbiosis, you treat a gut bacteria like blastohominus that I had, if you continue to have gut issues, a leaky gut, and you're continuing to eat foods that irritate your gut and cause stressors inside, you are a weak host. And if your immune system is down, because remember 80% of your immune system is in your gut wall lining, if your gut is impaired, you have intestinal permeability, you have GI pathogen, well, you can't just take supplements to fix or eradicate this gut bug without working on what you're eating, how you're eating it, when you're eating it, and why you're eating it. And then we work on having a gut repair protocol and fixing that. Then you should be doing a GI pathogen test. But if you don't change the rest of your food and your life stress and the elements of the holistic method, it doesn't work. So the point I'm getting to is that you can't out-supplement bad lifestyle habits. If you're trying to do low carb keto and you're experimenting with carnivore, experimenting with fasting, well, if you're not sleeping right, if you're chronically stressed all day because of work or family members, financial stress, or for me, I have hidden internal stressors that keep contributing to my stress level. So remember that beaker of stress. If you imagine you have a beaker on top of your head, and that beaker keeps accumulating into your hypothalamus all these external stressors and internal stressors. Remember, external stressors also are your environmental stressors, and if you listened to my episode a few weeks ago, emotional toxins. So you have stressors from the products you're using, the household cleaning items, your Febreze spray, your dryer sheets, the air fresheners, soap, your detergent, all this stuff, paint, fumes, everything is an environmental toxin like that. So you want to look at ewg.org to find out what products you use if they're on the more higher toxic list, and change your environment. But also we want to change our emotional health and working on a response to stressors. So when you do a GI panel test and you find out Well, do you have dysbiosis? Do you have an overgrowth? Do you have infestation? It's gross to take a sample of your poop, but we do a 1 or 3 day panel. If you do the GI map, it's a 3-day stool test. The Biohealth 401H GI pathogen test is 1 day. And then the company I love, Megasport Quran, who does microbiome labs, they have a new Biome FX lab test that we need to interview them on as well. But that's going to test your gut biome bacteria and balance there. So the GI pathogen test is really important because it'll tell you if you have H. pylori, if you have any different bacteria overgrowths, if you have a yeast infection, fungal infection. So all this information you don't know if you don't test. So it identifies the pathogens, overgrowth, and biofilms that prevent healing and contribute to metabolic chaos. So I'm doing my test again. I haven't done one for a long time. And I think, what is wrong? Why am I doing all this stuff, taking all these mitochondrial supplements and doing all this stuff, but I still can't run? That's always my thing is I want to run a 3:12 marathon again. Well, maybe I just want to run a marathon. If I could just run a 9-minute mile and not be winded, that's my goal. So I have to kind of back up on my goals, but I want to run a race again, and maybe I can't because I damaged myself too much, and I'm just trying everything. But I think, for me, I need to get all the labs retested and see where I am, and then figure out a new protocol using my FDN health practitioner detective skills I've gained. The GI map is really cool one to get. It's $359, but it's pretty great. And that includes markers for gluten sensitivity, anti-gliadin IgA, inflammation in the gut, immunity in the gut, secretory GA, really important to do. You want to have good immune secretory GA because it's your first line of defense in your gut wall lining. Your pancreatic enzyme sufficiency, and your occult blood. It also looks at the presence of pathogens, including H. pylori that I think I have, another bacteria, parasites, worms, and viruses in the GI tract. So that's the GI map, and it's pretty exciting information we get back. We order this through our medical director program, and they interpret the results and then send us the letter, and then we add these clues to your investigation on how you can optimize your performance, longevity, and of course your mitochondria function. So the markers on the test also bacteria pathogens, parasite pathogens, viral pathogens, H. pylori, normal bacteria, flora, phyla, microbiota, opportunistic bacteria, and your autoimmune triggers. So the list goes on: parasites, fungal, yeast, virus, worms, and additional tests you can add on. The last one we do for our health detective program is the MRT. And that's a food sensitivity lab test. You need to go to LabCorp somewhere near your house that you can get blood work taken. And this will tell us up to 170 foods that you are reactive to or sensitive to. So what we do is remove these foods, and then we reintroduce them one at a time, or you redo the test. But you take them away for 3 months and just eat the foods that are green list to eat, and you avoid the yellow and the red listed foods. And then we use metabolic typing. So metabolic typing diet, there's a quiz you can look at, mtdiet.com, and that is a great one to add in. Now, I also really want everyone to do this organic acid test, called short for OATS. And that's $309 plus a medical director fee that we pay. But this provides insight into the body's cellular metabolic processes. So organic acids are the metabolic intermediates that are produced in the pathways of the central energy production, detoxification, neurotransmitter breakdown, or intestinal microbial activity. Marked accumulation of specific organic acids detected in our urine often signals a metabolic inhibition or a block. The metabolic block may be due to a nutrient deficiency or an inherited enzyme deficiency or toxic buildup and drug effects. Several of the biomarkers of the intestinal bacteria yeast overgrowth are in this OATS test. So the OATS test is going to help us fatty acid metabolism energy production, B, complex vitamin markers, methylation cofactors and markers, neurotransmitter metabolism markers, oxidative damage and antioxidant markers, detoxification indicators, bacteria, and yeast markers. So really essential part of our investigation to figure out, are you doing everything right to optimize your health? Are you working on improving the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method, which is nutrition and exercise, but also your sleep, your stress, internal and external stressors, doing these hidden lab tests, or these internal hidden stressors using the labs. And then we work on movement mobility drills. And you've got, of course, digestion, how you're eating, chewing your food, eating slowly, being parasympathetic nervous state, being calm and focused and relaxed when you're eating. Huge one. Even people doing keto, you still have to, if you're eating all low carb, if you're not eating your food properly, you're still going to have maldigestion issues. Sorry to tell you that. And if you're eating dirty keto, you're still going to cause your body to have extra toxins in your body and cause inflammation and overload your liver in the detoxification pathways. So the next one is water. Hydration is super essential, and having electrolytes. You know, there's Rob Wolf. I was just talking about his blog the other day, but LMNT, their product is great electrolytes, minerals to have. We need sodium and potassium and magnesium, and having just a little real salt in your water in the morning is essential, and having enough water, filtered, not tap water, throughout the day is essential to your health. And lastly, happiness. As I always try to end the show, make sure after you're listening, and while you're listening, you're out going for a walk and outdoor time outside, getting that sunlight, daylight exposure. Even if it's not sunny, get out there and do something fun and laugh. I'm so much happier now than I actually closed my fitness studio, but I am happier than I was when I had, was able to race and do what I love to do. But I realized I was also chronically stressed. I was packing my day ridiculously full, and I was home at 8:00 every night and out the door at 3-4 in the morning. So it catches up with you, and you can't live your life like that for very long. You think you're invincible, and you're not. And you can read about my story. I thought I was like Superwoman and could do all this stuff, but you know what? Look at me now. I'm paying for it, and I'm sitting on my butt telling you free information on a podcast that I'm paying for to do. So I'm trying to help you avoid going through what I went through. So lastly, let's get to the main point of this today. Metabolic flexibility. I'm going to talk a lot as I start researching for KetoCon conference, talking about, what is metabolic flexibility? What is mitochondria function? And all that information. So I've been kind of gathering research articles and putting the summary into one Word document to save them. But just to start off, and then of course run out of time again, metabolic flexibility is the ability of cells to change substrates for energy production based on the nutrient availability and energy requirement. And this is a document online. I have the links I can share with you if you ask. I have it all here. It has been shown metabolic flexibility is impaired with obesity and chronic diseases as type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic syndrome. Although whether it's a cause or an effect of these conditions remains unknown. Metabolic flexibility is defined as ability to burn fat for fuel or carbohydrates, basically. So the primary substrates are glucose and fatty acids, which are converted to, if you want to get into science, acetyl-CoA, acetyl coenzyme CoA. So it's short for acetyl-CoA, and that's something to talk about for mitochondria function to improve fat burning, to supplement with. Cellular respiration for most tissues and organs utilizes only one energy substrate at a given time. Glucose during the fed state and fatty acids during a fasted state are what they're studying. Exceptions include the brain. But however, it's been observed that under stress and severe energy deprivation conditions, exclusivity can be broken and both glucose and fatty acids are consumed for energy production. So what are they saying in this article? I think it's talking about the shift between two sources of energy. So we have this body's amazing ability to have its own innate intelligence. Go, okay, I have 60,000 calories of stored fat for fuel, or I have 2,000 calories of stored carbohydrates for fuel. Well, which one should I use? And way back when, ancestral primal conditions, we were eating when hungry and when there's food available, so they'd fast in between. And depending on where area of the world your ancestors came from, you'll be able to look at ancestral DNA or 23andMe and see where the highest percentage of your ancestors are from. And that will give you a little more indication of what type of food your body does well on. And mine was Northern European, so it said, if you look it up, my body did better for eating more stews and meats and proteins, basically. So it's interesting. If I take that information, look at what type of blood type I am, I'm type O, then they say in Chinese medicine as well, the blood O type is going to be better with a higher protein intake. So I find that higher protein diet works for me. So this eating right from a metabolic type, you can find out what food ratios you need so your body is able to burn fat for fuel. So metabolic flexibility, where am I going with that, is just your body should be burning fat as its automatically as its main fuel source for energy. Metabolic flexibility describes the ability of an organism to respond or adapt to the changes in or around as the conditions what your body needs. So you want to be primarily, number one engine source is fat, and the backup engine is your carbohydrate fuel source. So you'll be able to kind of flip back to carbs and needed for dire emergencies and switch back to your main fuel source that's long-lasting fat. So there's articles, what is metabolic flexibility, how you can achieve it, by Dave Asprey and Mark Sisson. They make it a little easier to understand than on the PubMed articles that I found. But metabolic flexibility means your body uses whatever fuel is available: dietary fat, stored fat, glucose, or glycogen. So learning how to get it to be choosing fat for the main fuel is what we do in the fat adaptation process that we talk a lot about over these last 5+ years. When we started Fit Fat Fast in 2011, we have 100 episodes in the archives on debbiepots.net. You can go read or listen to what we talked about way back then on metabolic flexibility, metabolic efficiency, low carb, high fat. We were kind of ahead of the times and should have stayed with Fit Fat Fast. But metabolic flexibility is what we should be striving for by being low carb, high fat for an extended period of time until your body makes that shift of being a fat burning machine. So there's lots of data we can talk to Peter Defty about in my next recording with him, how to improve that ability to be metabolically flexible and how to improve our health. So if we want to adapt, we want to adapt to burning fat. And a lot of what I've read over the years is if you're a sugar burner, you don't switch back and forth. You're burning sugar, but if you're a fat burner, you're able to switch to burning glucose when needed and shift back to fat. And that is a big thing of people that are still following the standard American diet, and they're eating 3 meals a day and snack, and having to eat every few hours to keep their energy up, or else they crash and burn. And, those are carb burners. So we want to adapt to be fat burners and have that energy source coming down properly. So let's see, what else can I share? It's too sciencey stuff in here, but exercise is a great way to match your fuel source with metabolic machinery to meet your energy demands. And that's what we test in the metabolic efficiency testing, is what heart rates can you train at before that metabolic crossover point. So it would measure the RQ, the respiratory quotient, where the number would change where you're burning primarily fat to suddenly it's higher carbohydrates. So we had that crossover point where the high fat burning numbers were, and then suddenly the fat goes down, the carbs go up, and there's a certain crossover point that we'd look for. So you really want to get that metabolic efficiency test done to see where you are. But looking at the underlying mechanisms to have a healthy metabolic flexibility happens with fasting, and they're talking about feeding and from your rest, from recovery, from exercise. And the metabolic inflexibility is going to be, I think, when you're more of a carb burner. So metabolic flexibility, Mark Sisson had a great article that makes it a little easier to understand. It's a capacity to match fuel oxidation to fuel availability, or think of it as a switch between burning carbs and burning fat. When someone with great metabolic flexibility can burn carbs when they eat them, they can burn fat when they eat it or when they don't eat at all. So when they're fasting, they can switch between carbohydrate metabolism and fat metabolism with relative ease. Now, those people who can eat whatever they want, they probably have that excellent metabolic flexibility. Those are the people that drive you nuts. And you're like, why can they eat whatever they want and get away with it and they don't get fat? Versus I was always easy to gain weight. I always have to work on keeping my weight down. And fasting helps me. But sometimes I'm starting to listen a little more, and we'll talk to Kelsey about women and fasting and hormonal cycles, and what Dr. Stacy Sims shares in her book about sometimes we need a little more carbohydrates and not think our body, don't let your body think it's starving itself, because it will start to burn sugar, increase the sugar levels. So it's interesting info we'll dive into with Kelsey Hess from Keon. But why do we need a metabolic flexibility? Well, Mark Sisson always has great articles and why we need to increase our metabolic flexibility. Why do we need to burn fat, really? And, should you be able to eat a sweet potato and a grass-fed ribeye? If you're able to exercise and burn fat for fuel, and all this information he has on his blog, I'll put the link to, but see if we can get him on the show, since Brad Kearns works with him. He can hook me up. The more metabolically flexible we are, the less we have micromanage our macronutrients and calories. I don't like people counting calories. I'm not a big macronutrient counter. I rather people eat going by how they feel full, because if you eat more protein, healthy fats, if you're not leptin resistant and have ghrelin hormone, that growling, get hunger hormone issues, you will improve those with fasting. But I find that if you grew up dieting like I did too much, counting calories does not work. Counting macronutrients is just as bad mentally for someone that dieted as I did growing up. It doesn't work to your head, because then keep telling my clients, this is not a diet. We're trying to change what you eat so you're becoming a fat burner, you're metabolically more flexible. And if you start to think you are dieting by counting macronutrients and calories, don't do it. I would just suggest going foods and getting that satiated feeling from the leptin hormone in your fat cells. Say, hey, I'm full, I've had enough. But also you have to sit, eat, focus, and chew your food if you're going to be full or not. Because if you're rushing and inhaling your food, that I see most people do, you're probably going to have digestion issues and not even know you ate food, and you overeat and you're not even full because you ate too fast and your food hasn't caught up to you yet. So the metabolic system is really important. We want to have that body to work to burn fat. We want to have our leptin and ghrelin hormones working to feel our appetites smaller, and we get full and satisfied easier. So being metabolically inflexible, here's some signs and symptoms. You get sleepy after eating carbs. You cannot go 5 hours between feedings. I would change that to even 3 hours. You refer to meals as feedings. You get the midday crash after lunch. You must snack to sustain levels. You find it difficult to do any fasting, and you manage power through it with discomfort, and you get worse results as muscle loss and not losing fat weight. You can't function without a steady stream of stimulants like coffee, tea, or worse, sugars. So that would be metabolic flexibility, inflexibility. But that also, if you look at nutritional therapy in our assessment questionnaire I give my clients, that is all symptoms of HPA axis dysfunction and blood sugar dysregulation. So there's a lot more to it. I would look at your why. These are stressors. If you're having your blood sugar roller coaster happen and you are changing what you're eating, then we need to dive in a little deeper and go, what's your why? Because a lot of people are still eating crappy food, eating a lot of high carbs and sugars, and they're addicted to it. So you're getting all these issues as I just explained. But if you start to try to change to do low carb, high fat, and you stuck with it and you didn't cheat for 4 to 6 weeks, then I would look at doing the functional lab testing and doing your Keto Mojo blood sugar testing, because we might find there's some hidden internal stressors that are causing you to have more issues with food and nutrient absorption and eating foods that you're not breaking down and absorbing. So what's the main causes of inflexibility? We dive into as well on this blog, mitochondria. So mitochondria are my hot topic this year. As I said, they are the powerhouse of the cells. They make energy. They are often broken down dysfunctional. The more oxidative stress we have in our life, we are damaging our mitochondria. So really important part of the process of mitochondria optimization is fasting, is low carb, and getting your body to be metabolically flexible. And often people are metabolically inflexible or probably insulin resistant. So we want to be able to balance our blood sugar, eat real food that makes us feel full and energized and not feel bloated. So you want to refire your metabolism up. There's a lot to it. It's not just switching to keto, but it's baby steps. And I have my clients that I coach start working on the lab testing. But as we order those labs, we start working on what they're eating. Then I talk about how are you eating it? Where are you eating it? What time are you eating it? Let's start with a 12-hour intermittent fast and work towards 16 hours. You can't just start with 16 if you're a carb burner, because you're going to be dying of sugar energy deprivation. So we need to work our way up there. And then we work on doing a 5-day jump start where it's more bone broth and liquids and help reset the liver and digestion processes. And then we work on getting good low carb, healthy fats, eating more leafy greens, organic vegetables if needed, and having the healthy fats and proteins, and getting Butcher Box and Athletic Greens each month is really helping me not go to the grocery store very often. So exercising is important, but it's all the Goldilocks effect. Not too much, not too little. Going low carb, working up towards more full keto, if it's right for you, and if that feels like what you want, we want to enhance mitochondria function. So the fasting and the exercising and, doing the infrared sauna, all this will help our mitochondria, and we want to have the mitophagy. So as we do in fasting, we get rid of the dead cells, and the mitochondria cells, we want to get rid of the weak, broken ones and get some new ones. So exercising is important. And then, getting that optimization through the different things we've talked about in previous episodes for mitochondria include the cold thermogenesis, intermittent fasting, I just said, infrared sauna, and doing some vagal tone exercises and different things you can do. So that's kind of main thing today. I just wanted to talk about metabolic inflexibility as well as flexibility and hidden internal stressors with functional lab tests, and working on becoming a fat burner. There's more to it than just changing to low carb. And I think a lot of people are struggling, that I read online and hear from, that they're just not getting the results that someone else is getting. Well, you are an individual that's unique. No one has your same thumbprint. No one has your same genetics. So take that into consideration and don't punish yourself. Take baby steps. It's working on doing everything opposite that we're taught, right? We were raised with this information, this political nutrition that was funded by, the industry, food industry and politics that's inaccurate. And you can get a lot of information from Dr. Barry, Dr. Nally, and Eric Westman and get the real information out there. So that's it for today. I can't keep talking, but I could go on these topics forever. And I hope to hear from you if you have questions and want to hear more about metabolic flexibility, the fat adaptation process, on how to improve your mitochondria function. Let me know as I talk to you on Wednesdays on health building and Fridays about performance longevity, which includes mitochondria function. So let's work on improving your ability to burn fat. Also, to burn fat, you need to optimize mitochondria. So it's not just one thing to change. It's just one baby steps. As Dr. Tom O'Brien says, it takes base hits to create a home run. So don't try to do everything at once. I've learned that coaching clients, it doesn't work. People need to set small goals up each week and then get some habits down and then start the next layer. So give yourself a pat on the back and step it up to the next goals once you achieve those ones. So layer by layer, and you will feel better, move better, look better, and be happier on the inside and out. Remember, it's not being just fit, it's being fit and healthy on the inside and out, okay? And that includes your positive outlook, positive vibes, positive attitude. So go out, have fun, get out in that daylight, even if it's for 5 minutes. And if you can't do that, drive with your windows open. All right, see you next time. Head to debbiepotts.net for any questions and comments and feedback. And if you could give us a review on iTunes so we can get more exposure, that'd be perfect and make my day when I see new reviews. So thank you. I'm not good at asking, but I'm asking today. Please give a review and share this podcast to someone else you care about. All right. Adios. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.